Good morning, everyone. I am Maria Guadalupe Flamide Carvalho Wong. Here, I would like to present about today's topic, which is about securing information system. Next. There are 4 learning objectives. The first one is, why are information systems vulnerable to destruction, error, and abuse? Second, what is the business value of security and control? The third, what are the components of an organizational frameworks for security and control? And the last learning objectives is, what are the most important tools and technologies for safeguarding information resources? Next. For the first learning objectives is, why are information systems vulnerable to destruction, error, and abuse? So if you are operate a business today, you need to make security and control a top priority. So there are security and control. For security, it refers to the policies, procedures, and technical measures used to prevent unauthorized access, alteration, theft, or physical damage to information systems. For controls, it's a methods, policies, and organizational procedures that ensure the safety of the organization's assets, the accuracy and reliability of its records, and operational adherence to management standards. Next. The next is, why systems are vulnerable. The first is accessibility of networks. The potential for unauthorized access or damage is not limited to a single location, but it can occur at many access points in the network. The second, hardware problems, such as breakdowns, configuration errors, damage from improper use or crime. The third, software problems, such as programming errors, installation errors, and unauthorized changes. And the fourth is disasters, such as power failures, floods, fires, or other natural disasters can also disrupt computer systems. And then use of network computer outside of firm's control. And the last is loss and theft of portable devices. The other side is about internet are more vulnerable than internal networks because the network open to anyone. The size of the internet means abuses can have wide impact. The use of fixed internet addresses with cable or DCL modem creates fixed targets for hackers. The fourth vulnerability has also increased from widespread use of email, peer-to-peer or P2P, instant messaging, AIM. These lead to interception, attachment with malicious software, and transmitting trade secrets. Next. Next is about the wireless security challenges. So radio frequency bands easy to scan. Why? Because local area networks or LANs using the 802.11 standards can be easily penetrated by outsiders armed with laptops, wireless cards, external antenna, and hacking software. Hackers use these tools to detect unprotected networks, monitor network traffic, and in some cases, gain access to internet or to corporate networks. SSIDs, or surface set identifiers, that identify access points in a Wi-Fi network are broadcast multiple times and can be identified by sniffers programs, or driving, in which eavesdroppers drive by building and try to detect SSID and gain access to network and resources. Once access point is breached, intruder can use OS to access network, drives, and files. The malware or malicious software, or we can say bad software, these include viruses, worms and viruses, smartphone and vulnerable as computers, Trojan horse, SQL injection, ransomware, and spyware. The viruses is rogue software program that attach itself to other software programs or data file in order to be executed. Worms, independent programs that copy themselves from one computer to other computers over a network. Worms and viruses spread by downloads or drive-by downloads, email, IM attachments, downloads on websites and social networks. For smartphones, as vulnerable as computers, because study finds 13,000 types of smartphone malware. Trojan horses, software that appears benign but does something other than expected. SQL injection attacks hackers submit data to web forms that exploit such unprotected software and sends rogue SQL query to database. And then we have ransomware and spyware. Next. Next is the hackers and computer crime. Hackers versus crackers. Hackers is individual who intends to gain unauthorized access to a computer system, and cracker is typically used to denote a hacker with criminal intent. Although in the public press, the terms hacker and cracker are used interchangeably or vice versa. The activity include system intrusion or to include theft of goods and information, system damage, and cyber vandalism. This intentional disruption, defacement, destruction of website or corporate information. For spoofing is someone that misrepresenting oneself by using fake email addresses or masquerading as someone else. For sniffer is a type of eavesdropping program that monitors information traveling over network. For denial of service attacks, DOS, is a flooding server with thousands of false requests to press the network. And for distributed denial of service attacks, DDoS, is use of numerous computer to launch a DOS. Computer crime, defined as any violations of criminal law that involve a knowledge of computer technology for their perpetration, investigation, and prosecution. Computer may be target of crime. For example, first, breaching confidentially of protected computerized data, and second, accessing a computer system without authority. And for computer may be instrument of crime. The example can be theft of trade secrets and using email for threats or harassment. For identified theft of personal information such as social security ID, driver's license, or credit card numbers to impersonate someone else. Next is phishing, setting up fake websites of sending email messages that look like legitimate businesses to ask users for confidential personal data. Evil twins is wireless networks that pretend to offer trustworthy Wi-Fi connection to the internet, such as those in airport lounges, hotels, or coffee shops. Farming redirects users to a bogus web page, even when individual types correct web page address into his or her browser. The bogus network looks identical to a legitimate public network. Click fraud occurs when individuals or computer program fraudulently clicks on online ad without any intention of learning more about the advertiser or making a purchase. Click fraud has become a serious problem at Google and other websites that features pay-per-click online advertising. And the next is cyber terrorism and cyber warfare. Is a state-sponsored activity designed to cripple and defeat another state or nation by penetrating its computers or networks to cause damage and disruption. Next. Internal threats, employees. Security threats often originate inside an organization. Inside knowledge pose serious security problems. Sloppy security procedures is a user lack of knowledge. And in social engineering is where tricking employees into revealing their password by pretending to legitimate members of the company in need of information. Software vulnerability. Commercial software contains flaws that create security vulnerabilities. The hidden bugs or program codes defects is a zero defect cannot be achieved because complete testing is not possible with large programs, and flaws can open networks to intruders. The patches is a small pieces of software to repair flaws, and it exploits often created faster that patches can be released and implemented. Next. Next is the second learning objective, which is about what is the business value of security and control. Next. Here, failed computer system can lead to significant or total loss of business function. Firms now are more vulnerable than ever. Confidential personal and financial data, trade secrets, new products, and strategies. A security breach may cut into a firm's market value almost immediately. Inadequate security and controls also bring forth issues of liability. The legal and regulatory requirements for electronic records management and privacy protection has three types of it. The first one is HIPAA. It's for medical security and privacy rules and procedures. The second is Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. It requires financial institutions to ensure the security and confidentiality of customer data. And the last is Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Imposes responsibility on companies and their management to safeguard the accuracy and integrity of financial information that is used internally and released externally. Electronic evidence. Evidence for white-collar crimes, often in digital form, such as data on computers, email, instant messages, and e-commerce transactions. Proper control of data can save time and money when responding to legal discovery requests. Computer forensic, scientific collection, examination, authentication, preservation, and analysis of data from computer storage media for use as evidence in court of law. This includes recovery of ambient and hidden data. Next. Next is the third learning objective, which we will talk about what are the components of an organizational framework for security and control. Next. Information system controls are both manual and automated and consist of general and applications controls. General controls, it governs design, security, and use of computer programs and security of data files in general throughout organizations' information technology infrastructure. It applies to all computerized applications, and it has combination of hardware, software, and manual procedures to create overall control environment. There's types of general controls are software controls, hardware controls, computer operation controls, data security controls, implementation controls, and administrative controls. Administrative application controls is a specific controls unique to each computerized application, such as payroll or order processing. It includes both automated and manual procedures. Ensure that only authorized data are completely and accurately processed by that application. And it includes input control, processing control, and output controls. In risk assessment, it determines level of risk to firm if a specific activity or process is not properly controlled. And for security policy, consists of statements of ranks information risk, identifies acceptable security goals, and identifies mechanism for achieving these goals. Next. Next is about identify management. Here, the business processes and tools to identify valid users of system and control access to identify and authorize different categories of users, specifies which portion of system use can access, and authenticating users and protects identifies. Next is the Identify Management System. It captures access rules for different levels of users. For disaster recovery planning, the device plans for restoration of disrupted services. And for business continuity plan, this focus on restoring business operation after disaster. Both types of plans needed to identify firms' most critical systems, business impact analysis to determine impact of an outage, and management must determine which system restored first. Information system audit examines firms' overall security environment as well as controls governing individual information systems, reviews technologies, procedures, documentation, training, and personnel, and may even simulate disaster to test response of technology, IS staff, and other employees. Lists and ranks all control weaknesses and estimates probability of their occurrence. And the last is assess financial and organizational impact of each threat. Next. The next is the last learning objective, which is what are the most important tools and technologies for safeguarding information resources. Next. Identity management software automates keeping track of all users and privilege, authenticates users, protect the identities, and controlling access. Authentication is often established by using password systems. Password system known as for tokens is a physical device similar to an identification card that is designed to prove the identity about the size of a credit card that contains a chip formatted with access permission and other data. For biometric authentication, uses systems that read and interpret individual human traits, such as fingerprints, irises, and voices to grant or deny access. And for two-factor authentication, increase security by validating users through a multi-step process. Firewall prevent unauthorized users from accessing private networks. Firewall is a combination of hardware and software that prevents unauthorized users from accessing private networks. There are numbers of firewall screening technologies included static packet filtering, stateful inspection, network address translation or NAT, and application proxy filtering. Intrusion detection system monitors hotspots on corporate networks to detect and deter intrusions, examines events as they are happening to discover attacks in progress. For antivirus and anti-spyware software, it checks computers for presence of malware and can often eliminate it as well. And it requires continual updating. For Unified Threat Management, UTM systems, is to help businesses reduce cost and improve manageability. Security vendors have combined into a single appliance various security tools, including firewalls, virtual private networks, intrusion detection systems, and web content filtering and anti-spam software. Next. Next is about securing wireless network or WEP. Security can provide some security by assigning unique name to networks SSID and not broadcasting SSID, using it VPN technology. For Wi-Fi Alliance finalized WPA2 specification, replacing WEP with stronger standards. The first, continually changing keys, and the second is an encryption system with central server. Next is about encryption. Encryption is hypertext that cannot be read by unintended recipients. There are two methods for encryption on networks. The first one is secure sockets layer SSL and successor transport layer security or TLS, and the second is secure hypertext transfer protocol or SHTTP. And there are also two methods of encryption. The first is symmetric key encryption. It's a sender and receiver use single shared key. And for the second, public key encryption uses two or mathematically related keys, public key and private key. And the sender encrypts message with recipient's public key. And then last is recipient decrypt with private key. In digital certificates are data file used to establish the identity of users and electronics assets for protection of online transaction. For public key infrastructure or PKI is the use of public key cryptography working with certificate authority and is now widely used in e-commerce. In ensuring, next, in ensuring system availability, the online transaction processing requires 100% availability and no downtime. Fault-tolerant computer system. For continuity availability, for example, stock markets, and for contain redundant hardware, software, and power supply components that create an environment that provides continuous uninterrupted services. Control networks traffic. Here we have the deep packet inspection or DPI. Examines data, files, and sorts low priority material. And for security outsourcing, it manages security service provides or MSSPS. For security in the cloud, its responsibility for security resides with company owning the data. Firms must ensure provides adequate protections where data are stored, meeting corporate requirements, legal privacy laws, segregation of data from other clients, and audits and security certification. And the last is Surface Level Agreement, SLAS. For securing mobile platforms, the first one is security policies should include and cover any special requirements for mobile devices. These as a guidelines for use of platforms and applications. The second is the mobile device management tools. They will need mobile device management tools to authorize all devices in use to maintain accurate inventory records on all mobile devices, users, and applications, to control updates to applications, and to lock down or erase lost or stolen devices so they can be compromised. And the last is software for segregating corporate data on devices. Next. The last part is about ensuring software quality. Here, the first part will be software metrics are objective assessments of system in form of quantified measurements. Example, numbers of transactions, online response time, and payroll checks printed per hour, known bugs per 100 lines of code. And for the second part is early and regular testing. The third, walkthrough. Walkthrough is a review of a specification or design document by a small group of qualified people. And for the last part is debugging. Debugging is a process by which errors are eliminated. Next. So that's all from my presentation. If you have any question, please ask. Thank you so much.